Hey everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Broadcast. I'm your host Brad Gandell, and I'm back, baby. I'm super happy to be back. I had a little hiatus the end of last year. Took some personal time to focus on business and life stuff, but I'm really excited about this year. I already have a ton of episodes planned, and I'm going to be releasing a lot of new content for you guys throughout the year. So to get started this year, though, I wanted to do a recap on the 2019 markets and talk a little bit about what we can possibly expect for the future. And I didn't think there's anybody better and more qualified to help us out with that than Mr. Danny Ross. And he is one of the co-owners of Pinnacle Estate Properties, as well as one of the top producers. So, Danny, thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, Brad. I was honored that you asked me to be here this morning. Thank you.
Oh, I did. You're welcome, and it's nothing too crazy. But so, have you ever done a podcast or anything before?
I've never done a podcast. All the different things I've done, not a podcast. I do about 3 office meetings a week and talk to our agents about the market so they can help their clients understand the market and educate everybody for many years. But it's first podcast I've done.
Good. So, well, it's a good thing you came dressed in your Sunday best, even though you could have came in just your t-shirt and shorts, but it's all good. I actually had somebody in here before, and she completely dolled up. She looked great, but she didn't realize podcast is just kind of chit-chatting and stuff too. So when I told her there's no video for this, she was super disappointed. Pretty funny. So I want to get right into it.
No problem.
First of all, how long have you been selling for?
I've been selling real estate for 33 years. I started at Pinnacle Estate Properties in 1986. So I've been through a lot of different markets. I started off as an agent when I was 18 years old.
Jeez.
And became one of the owners of the company when I was about 27 years old.
Good for you.
And I'm still selling real estate.
And you have only been at Pinnacle, correct?
I've only been at Pinnacle.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it must be a good company.
It's a great
if you
company.
like it that much, right?
Correct. There's nowhere else I'd work.
I've gotten that same feel from you guys in the, I guess, almost a year now. And all the agents I talk to, I mean, there's 1,100, 1,200 agents in the company. Yeah. I've never heard of anybody talk bad. Obviously, that's why they're still there. But even the people outside of other brokerages say how great Pinnacle is and how great you guys are. So
thanks, I appreciate that.
Well, thank you guys for having us. And like I said, I've absolutely loved it. So you've been doing this quite a while. You've seen a couple different types of markets. You've seen it up, you've seen it down, you've seen re-elections. So we're going to go over a lot of that stuff. So in your honest opinion, how do you think 2019 ended?
2019 was a great year. We were very happy with the results. Our sales production at the company was up. Statistically, sales were up in our marketplaces, and that was a tremendous help. We've been in a good market for about 6 or 7 years, and there's just more people who want to buy homes than homes available for sale, and we just don't see that changing anytime soon.
So a lack of inventory is kind of what's driving the market right now?
Lack of inventory is driving the market, and if you look back to any of the sizzling markets, there's always a lack of inventory. I was thinking that the other day when I was brand new in the business, 18 years old, and people say, how is it going? I'm like, there just aren't enough homes to sell. There's a lack of inventory. And this was back in the late 80s. So it's a constant issue in any sizzling market. But you're always going to find a home. If you're a home buyer, you're working with a good real estate agent, you're going to find the right house.
There's a famous saying. My uncle sells cars. He's been in the car business for years. He doesn't say it so cleanly. There's a rear end for every seat.
Right.
It's the same way in real estate. I always believe no matter what home I show or whatever clients I'm working with, somebody always buys the house, no matter shape or condition, what it looks like and everything like that. So why is it that inventory is so low, in your honest opinion? Is it because there's just not enough builds right now? Is it just more of the baby boomers are staying in and not moving out? What in your opinion is causing the reason for a lack of inventory?
There's a lot of reasons. I mean, you hit on the baby boomer issue. This is a national phenomenon. Normally, people sell their homes once the kids are out and they're starting to retire. The kids move out, they keep working for another 10, 15 years. People hit 65, 70 years old. They sell the house. They don't need the 4 or 5 bedroom house. They move to a retirement area. They buy something smaller. And nationally, that isn't happening in the numbers of previous generations. So, in other words, you look at the greatest generation, the generation before the baby boomers, and that's what they did. They sold their homes over and over again. That's what they did. They retired, they sold their homes, they went on to the next chapter in their life. This generation, many of them are staying in their homes. They're not moving at the rate they were. Some are moving, and they love that decision, and they go on to a new adventure. But a lot are staying in their house. So it's creating a lack of inventory across the country. This isn't a local Southern California issue. It's a national issue. So the numbers of homes that are listed is far less today than it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's with homes actually being built and everything too.
That's even with homes being built, because there's not that many homes being built here. In some markets across the country, there's lots of land. You drive and there's just land, and you see new home tracts popping up in the middle of farm fields. Mm-hmm. And it's a great opportunity to buy a new house. If you're in Southern California and you live here, that's not the case. There's very few spots where new homes are being built, and where the new homes are being built, the homes are very expensive.
Oh yeah.
So the resales are valuable. It's what people want.
Yeah, I'm seeing it, and to kind of piggyback off that, I have family friends who've got grandparents. They're like, hey, we're staying here until we're being carried out in a box, basically. Right. And I have no issue. I love that and respect that and everything. But there's no reason for them to move, and they're retired, but they're only collecting Social Security, maybe a little pension from retirement. But if they were to sell their place here, cash out, they're not going to be able to buy anything else, at least in Southern California, just because of how crazy expensive it is. And a lot of them still have family locally and close by. So if they were to have to buy and move out of state, right, being able to visit family is they're not going to be able to do it as much.
Right. And another phenomenon is that didn't happen 20, 30 years ago. The goal of so many is to keep their current home as a rental property and buy another one if they can afford to do that. So most clients they want that investment. They want real estate investment. Mm-hmm. Because you think about owning rental property. Stock markets go up and down. You invest in a company, you don't know how their profits are going to turn out or what's going to happen. There's a lot of risk. You buy residential real estate as a rental, and there's always somebody who needs to rent that house. You're never going to be stuck with a vacant house for a long time. Lower the rent you're asking by $100. Go from $2,900 a month, ask $2,800, and you'll have all the applicants you want. As an example. So people are always like, God, I want to move, but we're saving so we can save our existing house. And having a home as owning rental property is a very safe investment for your retirement years. Mm-hmm. And think about this: all of us have met wealthy retired people, right? And you meet these wealthy retired people, and most of the time, you find out they own rental property. Sometimes they own commercial property, sometimes residential units. They have rental income coming in because rental income keeps up with inflation. And when you retire off of savings, when the savings is gone, it's gone. You can't earn enough on that really to keep up with the cost of living and inflation, but rental property does. So wealthy old people own rental property most of the time. Think back, right? Think back, you're at parties, you meet someone's uncle, someone's this, the guy's loaded, she's loaded, they do really well. Why? They own this, they own that, they own this. So everybody wants to try to tap into that and not be dependent on the stock market for retirement. I know that's true for myself. I invest in real estate. I wish I would have sooner. Wish I would have started a lot earlier
Especially
than I
when it was
did.
a little bit cheaper, huh?
Especially when it was a little bit cheaper. But you just have to hop in. You can't look backwards. And all the years I've been selling real estate, I can tell you, if you buy something now, you'll always be glad 10 years from now. Even if markets adjust a little bit or whatever happens, you look through your life, decade through decade, you'll always be glad you bought something, even if maybe it went down a little bit or interest rates changed or whatever occurred. You're always glad you have that asset. And that's the advice I give to our younger agents. Like, just what's your goal? It's like I do goal setting with agents. What's my goal this year? Your goal is to earn enough money to buy a rental property. And that's what you need to do. And that's my best advice to them, because I want to see people succeed and create wealth.
Yeah, I bought my first place 3.5 years ago, and I absolutely love it. And the goal's been since to buy a new rental property. Hasn't happened yet. Got more important things to pay for right now, like a wedding and stuff like that. I know you just went through that with your daughter and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of put all that on hold for now. But dude, that's the end game for me.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question, Rod. Like, when you move to
changing-
your next,
changing up,
when you move to your next house, which you will, what do you want to do with your current house?
Keep it.
Yeah, there you go.
I want to keep it. I mean, even right now, if I'm making a couple $100 in profit, I know I have a lot of equity in the house. God forbid something happens, I can always sell it. I have cash in my pocket from the house no matter what.
Right.
But if I keep people in there, and even if it actually rents out a little bit less right off the depreciation, and it's always good to have. I mean, I got clients who are doing the same thing. They're moving up from, right now, a townhome to a multi-million-dollar home, and they have rental properties, and they wanted to keep their townhome as a rental, but they said, you know what, we're going to cash out. We want to have the extra cash to feel more comfortable. But what they're going to do once they're back in when they're in their new place after a few months and they realize, hey, we can do this, all that extra money, I'm going to take them out into the valley, and they're going to buy a couple of rental properties out there instead of renting out the townhome where they're at. Plus, they won't have HOAs out there, so they can make a little bit more profit.
Right.
So I think it's the smartest thing anybody can do. I actually like being interviewed. It makes it a little fun, a little bit different. I haven't been asked questions like that on my show yet. So what did you see, if any, difference from the 2018 year market to the 2019? Any changes? We obviously know prices went up. Did you see anything as far as rates fluctuate, market trends, anything different that you might have noticed?
That's a great question. I actually did notice something. At the end of 2018, the last quarter, interest rates went up. Resident mortgage rates were over 5%. They were 5 to 5.25%, 5.5%.
And that's right when the Fed started raising the rates and everything.
The Fed started raising the rates, and it was interesting to see what happened to our market, all of our markets, whether it was Calabasas or Simi or the Valley or wherever it was. Inventory started to grow a little bit, and prices came down a little bit. They adjusted. So we're very much in a payment-based market where people are comfortable with a certain payment. And right now, while interest rates are low, the home price matches the interest rate, and it's what people can afford. You raise interest rates a percent, 1.25%. That raises a payment on a $600,000 house, by maybe, $500 a month. And all of a sudden, people are like, "Oh, I need to spend a little bit less to stay in my budget, in my comfort zone." So, the end of 2018, I was doing office meetings on price reductions, helping agents talk to their clients about why their homes weren't selling right away. And then 2019 hit, and rates started coming back down, and prices shot back up again right away. So I think what 2018 taught us, even though it was a 3-month period, was that we're an interest rate based market, and if rates went up, I do think home prices would adjust. But remember, your payment's the same. The payment's going to be the same. It's not going to be cheaper to buy a house let's say in 4 years interest rates are higher and home prices have to come down, your payment's still going to be the same because you're going to have a higher interest rate with a lower purchase price. And so
they're not both going to come down or both going to go up.
No, it's not ever going to be cheaper. It's not ever going to cost you less money a month to own a house. That's not what we see happening. It's going to be one or the other.
And I've actually seen personally, with the higher prices and the lower rate, people are actually able to afford more as far as a purchase price goes. And not only that, over time, I know it's hard to look 5-10 years down the road, you're saving a lot more money long term as far as interest goes. You don't have to pay it all back in your loan or anything like that.
Absolutely.
And I know you're seeing a ton of refis. Interesting. Why at the beginning of 19 did we see the rates come back down? Is it because we started to see prices go up and the feds realized we might have priced some people out of the market and we need to adjust it again?
It's all really based on the 10-year bond market. When you see the Federal Reserve raise and lower interest rates, those are short-term rates bank to bank. And they have an effect on mortgage rates, but not particularly. If you're a watcher of mortgage rates, pay attention to the 10-year bond rate. Go on Yahoo Finance and just click on the 10-year bond rate. It's right there in the ticker. And look at the last year, 2 years, 5 years. Take a look. And that's where residential mortgage rates are based. And we're hoping rates stay low because there's many foreign countries where their investors and their investment advisors advise their clients to put money in the 10-year bond in mortgage-backed securities in the U.S. Because a lot of countries, like Germany, for instance, has negative interest rates where they charge you monthly to keep your money in the bank. So if you can get 3% on a mortgage-backed security in the U.S., that's a great return compared to paying a fee each month to have the honor of keeping your money in the bank. And there's other countries that are in the same situation. So the more money that comes into mortgage-backed securities, the 10-year bond in the U.S., the lower it keeps our interest rates because there's an excess of money, which keeps it's a supply and demand issue. And there's a lot of money there. It's cheaper to borrow it. When there's a small amount of money, it's more expensive to borrow.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I completely understand it, completely see it. And I know for the last, at least since I've been selling, the biggest thing you hear about are foreign buyers coming out this way. More so up north, you're seeing it, but yeah, big money, and it's helping keep at least the rates down. I believe that too. So, what everybody wants to know, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We can't predict the future. It's hard to. But in your honest opinion, what do you think is going to happen this year as far as the market goes, and maybe even going into 2021?
The market this year, my prediction for the market this year is that I think we'll see substantial price increases between now and June. There are so many buyers out there looking for homes, and inventory is low. I am a student of the market, and I can sit at home at night on my laptop and just run cities and price ranges and see huge gaps in of homes available for sale. And so when homes do become available for sale in those price ranges, there's so many buyers waiting for them that they're just going to keep bidding themselves up. And with rates as low as they are right now, we're going to see price increases. I put up on our office meeting screen a prediction: a buyer is better off buying early in 2020 than later in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for a home right now, you're better off trying to find something now, just because prices are going to go up a little bit. And even though prices are going to go up, we're still going to buy. Would I still sell a house to my children in November of 2020 or at the end of the year after prices have gone up? Yes, because you can't time a market. Housing markets aren't like stock markets. You can watch Apple stock and study it and try to buy it on a dip, right? And then you can make a few bucks when it goes back up. And housing market isn't like that. You can't just buy in a little dip and then pop back up. You just have to have faith this is something you're doing for the long term, and it will pay off. I promise. When you're that old person at a party and someone points at you and says, "Hey, I heard that guy's loaded," right? It's because that person bought
loaded with money, not loaded with booze.
Not exactly loaded
There
with
we
money.
go.
Exactly loaded with money, not loaded with booze. That person bought real estate throughout their life, and they're all set. I mean, we have agents here that have, made it a rule to buy one rental property a year, wherever it's been. Maybe it's out in the desert, maybe it's in a vacation area, maybe it's here locally. And some of them overpaid, some of them were upside down on them for years, but they all turned around and they made money on them. It didn't matter.
Long term, it did.
Long term, and then remember, when you're renting them out, rental prices aren't like home prices that can really come down too much. Rental prices historically are very steady. They just are. It just kind of increases with inflation, and it just moves along. It's a very stable gauge. So even if you bought something and you're afraid, what if it goes down in value? Well, let's say you bought a place for $500,000 and you're renting it out for $3,200 a month, right? And let's say that 520 place goes down in value to $480 from 520. That rental price stays the same. You're still getting the same rent. It's still the same investment. Just rent it out. Just keep renting it, and I'm sure in 3 years, 5 years, whatever, it's going to be worth, that 320 place may be worth 380 or 400. It doesn't matter. Don't try to time the market. I have so many friends and clients. When's a good time to buy? Now. This is our life. We're living it. Buy something now.
Well, to kind of, again, piggyback off that, I think what a lot of people have a hard time seeing is long term. If you're going to buy something and be there for 1, 2, maybe even 3 years, it may be best to hold off and go rent something, because if prices do go up, how much equity are you going to really build, things like that. But if you buy something, even if you overpay or pay a little bit more than you wanted to, if you're there at 10, 15, 20 years, or you plan on keeping it for forever, why does it matter if you paid a few extra bucks for it? You got the house, right? You got exactly what you wanted. So to me, I'm the same. I got tons of friends, especially now, people my age. I got friends who are first-time buyers. I'm going to hold off until the market comes down. It's like, well, if we've been hearing people say that for the past 5 years, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't see it happening.
And Brad, let's talk about that for a minute. What causes a real estate market to go down, right? Like I said, I'll refer back to the stock market. A stock can go down quickly because they had a bad quarter or a bad conference call by the CEO, and the stock can drop, right? What causes a housing market to go down? What causes a housing market to go down is when there's tons of signs up in a neighborhood, right? You drive through a neighborhood and you see 3, 4 sellers on the same street competing for the same buyer, right? And the homes are sitting on the market, and one reduces, the other one reduces. Everybody's trying to find that one buyer for the house. Do you know how far away we are from nice homes in nice neighborhoods sitting on the market without any buyers? Drive through any neighborhood right now, drive through 500 homes, tell me how many signs you see. The point we'd have to get through for prices to drop is when sellers compete against each other because there aren't any buyers out there, and when that one buyer comes into the neighborhood, they all want to grab that buyer. We're so far from that happening. And for a lot of people your age, Brad, they can remember the housing crash, right? So they think, oh, I'll wait for the housing crash and it's going to happen again. What caused the housing crash nationally? It was zero down state of income,
bad loans.
You could have a job where you made $2,000 a month. You could buy a house for $2 million, put down a loan application that you made $50,000 a month, put zero down payment down, and they give you the keys. That doesn't happen today. You have to qualify. You have a down payment. You qualify. Those loans that caused the financial crash, almost crashed the world. It caused the second depression that we just went through in the United States. It was the cause. And there's rules in place now. This isn't happening again. The banks aren't going back to that. So that's what caused this crash. So the people that are buying homes now had to qualify, and they put down payments in. It was traditional. This was a bleep in financial history with stated income, zero down loans, where anybody could buy a house for anything they wanted, and it crashed the market.
And any time we've had a crash in the past, the government has always put in stipulations of, hey, we're going to be prepared for this no matter what. This won't happen. Like you said, the bad loans, I tell clients all the time, you're going to be asked 3 or 4 or 5 times for a bank statement, and it may very well be the same bank statement. I have clients call me and say, my lender they keep losing my stuff. It's not, they're not losing your stuff. They really need it because of what happened.
Yeah.
And they're making sure that you're protected, as well as, the lender wants to make sure they're protected. They want to make sure they're not buying a bad loan. But more importantly, they want to make sure you're protected. You won't go bankrupt. You won't foreclose on the house or anything like that. Election year.
Yes.
You said you've been through real estate for 33 years, so you've seen quite a few elections. In your past, what does elections tend to do with the real estate market, tend to do with interest rates? Do we see it kind of hold steady? Do you see it kind of take off, pull back? Historically, what have you seen?
Historically, there's always some fluctuation around and after an election because markets do not like uncertainty. They like to know what's going to happen. So, for instance, in the 2016 election, before the election, rates were about 3.5%. And within a month after the election, rates went up to about 4.3%. They went up. And then they came back down later
What do
on.
you think caused them to go back up? Do you think it was just kind of holding off to see who got elected? Or was there something that investors knew and decided to get into the bond market? What was the reason for seeing the rates after the election take off so fast?
The stock market went up after the election, and so money came out of the bond markets and went into the stock markets as they were accelerating. So when there's less money in the bond markets, interest rates go up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So the more money in the bond market, the lower the interest rates.
The lower the rates.
The more money, the less.
Yeah. And when you see
higher
the
the
Dow
rates.
Jones average go down, you'll notice the 10-year bond goes down as well because more money goes into that. When the stock market goes up, sometimes the 10-year bond market goes up, which means interest rates can go up as well.
Okay.
But election years bring some uncertainty, but there really isn't. Historically, there really isn't a drastic change because presidents do not set interest rates. Federal Reserve short-term rates have a small effect on mortgage rates, but they're not the end-all. I mean, while the short-term rates have gone up over the past couple of years, we've also hit mortgage rate lows at the same time. So they're somewhat tied. If you look at charts, you'll see a correlation, but they're not exactly tied. But you can be certain in an election year there'll be some uncertainty. And when you look at a year in general and you look at average rates, like let's say this year the average rate is going to be 3.7 or 3.8%. There could be months where it's 4.1 and there could be months where it's 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
So if you happen to buy when rates this year are 4.1 and then rates go to 3.5, just refinance. Just refinance. It's no big deal. There aren't prepayment. You're not going to make sure your loan doesn't have a prepayment penalty. Most don't. It's rare to even see one.
I haven't seen any of mine.
No.
My clients have a prepay off penalty. So yeah, it's pretty rare to be able to see that. But yeah, and I know refinances have been crazy, especially the last year when rates were up almost 5%, and they dropped. I refied mine, and I got from 4 1/8 down to 3 3/4, and it saved me over $500 on my payments.
Yeah.
Well, I built equity in the house too and refinanced. Dude, I don't plan on moving. I don't plan on moving for a while, and like I said, once I do, the goal is to keep it rented out, and stick by it. So, in your opinion, let's say our current president right now stays in the White House after he's elected. What do you think, in your opinion, is going to happen with the market? Do you see rates kind of staying the way they're at, the market staying the way it's at? I know it's just a guess. Who knows?
We've had great interest rates now for about 6 or 7 years. So we've had great interest rates under the prior president. We've had great interest rates under the current president. And it's kind of, I was just read an article recently that someone put out who studies mortgages, and we're at the interest rates today are averaging around 600-year lows. I think it was like 640 years. They studied centuries back, and they adjust for inflation, but we're about 600-year lows for interest rates. And again, what's causing some of these low interest rates are other countries with such struggling economies that have negative interest rates to try to stimulate their economies, that people are putting their money in U.S. mortgage-backed securities and 10-year bonds, and that's helping keep our rates low. So with whoever is president coming up for the next election cycle, money is going to continue to come into the U.S. and help, and people are going to buy U.S. mortgage-backed securities and 10-year bonds, because their country's economies aren't getting off the ground and money's going to flood in, which in turn is keeping our rates low. So we're hopeful they stay low. But this doesn't mean they're going to stay low forever. Remember, 15 months ago, rates were 5.5%, which are still great rates historically, but they were higher. So rates do fluctuate.
Compared to what it's been recently.
Personally, I'm anxious to buy something now. I'm looking in MLS all the time. I'm looking for another property to buy. While rates are this low, I want to buy. I don't want to guess the future and guess rates in the future and know that everything's going to be okay. I feel pressure myself to lock in another mortgage and take advantage of this cheap money, because you'll be so glad someday that you bought property with rates under 4% and you held on to it. It's like they're giving money away for free, and you want to think, how many loans can I get? How many properties can I buy? How many can I grab? Because someday your grandchildren will look at you and say, "Hey, Pop, how'd you get so rich?" And it's like, well, I got these 3.75% interest rates, but interest rates today are 11%. Yeah, I took advantage of a great time in history when we were at 600-year lows.
And that's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because although there's a lot of the older folks who probably have tons of rentals now, they bought homes a lot cheaper back then. And I know it's kind of tougher now with prices being so high compared to back then, but a lot of folks, at least a lot of people I talked to, didn't realize interest rates back then were 15%, 18%, so they were paying a ton on interest, even though they got the home for super cheap as far as price goes. But the interest, oh man, 18% on a house,
crazy.
And then now when you're paying 3.5% on a $600,000 purchase,
borrow as much of this money as you can, buy as many homes as you can with these interest rates, and I promise when you're older someday, you'll think back and you'll look back and go, I was a genius to buy all the real estate I could while rates were this low, because today with wherever rates are in the future, you'll be like, that was the smartest move. And you'll look, and people say, how are you so smart? Because what I've learned in real estate over the years is that you can't, it's hard to see an opportunity when you're in it. You can only see opportunities when they've passed and you realize what it was. So I'm telling you now, I'm ringing the bell. The opportunity,
and this is
right
33
now.
Years of experience, by the way.
Thanks. So when interest rates are this low, you borrow the money. You take advantage of it. You take the practically free money they're giving you, and you buy something, and you get a rental property. Maybe you'll make $100 a month on the rental. Maybe you'll lose $200 a month on the rental. It's small money. You'll buy it. You'll have it. Rents will go up eventually. That little negative will go away.
Tax write-offs.
You'll get it paid off. Tax write-offs. Exactly. You're fine. But I'm ringing the bell. Remember that, and borrow as much of this money as you can right now.
So to sum up everything today, buy before it gets too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking to sell before your competition
absolutely
increases.
And if you want to sell your house and upgrade, get the house you want. Get the house you like. If you need the down payment, like most people, which is pretty normal, we sell their house and they buy another one. Just do that. I know you'd like to keep yours as a rental, but get into the house that you want. If you can keep yours, fine. If not, roll it over to the next house.
And they have programs you could put down. Client right now, he's putting down 10%, but he could go conventional, but he's actually doing a 10% FHA. And the reason he's doing that his payments are cheaper with a 10% FHA than he is a 10% conventional, even with the mortgage insurance. They have 3% conventional programs. I purchased my place with a 5% down conventional. So they have programs available to be able to help if you don't have the down payment. But because right now wages are obviously increasing in California, the minimum wage just went up. People are making enough money to be able to do it. It's just they don't have it in pocket right now. So yeah, I agree. If you could do it, if you could swing it, take advantage of it. So thanks for coming on today.
My
Dude.
pleasure.
I really appreciate
Thank
it. I
you.
actually really
It's a lot of
enjoyed it.
fun.
And I told you try to keep it within the time frame. Did this thing not fly or what?
It flew.
It flew. So I'm definitely going to have you on again. Appreciate you having Danny Ross,
Pleasure.
everybody.
Thanks,
and
everybody.
take care, and we will talk soon.